I also had my visa situation in Germany. I had so many things which technically, if I looked at it, I shouldn't have done it. I would be lying if I told you I cracked the code. But I think the nature of humans is that it's if they see something free, they're very hard to convince them to pay for the same thing. Yes, like parking. So that's definitely a strategy.
Welcome to another episode of AI Product Engineer podcast, show, series, whatever you want to call it. It's basically a series of conversations that we have with builders, with movers, with shakers, with those who are really changing things in the generative AI space. And I'm really super happy to present to you this conversation that I had with Hamza from ZenML. This is a bit of an older conversation that we have here on our backlog. You will also notice how this is a conversation that happened when I was still learning how to do all this recording, how to do all this video production and so on, and therefore not everything might be that perfect as you'd like to be. Yeah, so maybe there are here areas for improvement. But that doesn't matter because the story that Hamza has to tell is very worth listening to. He is a fascinating person, and the journey that he went through in order to get here ZenML up and running is really fascinating. I keep thinking about it. This was really something that we recorded months ago, and I still remember vividly how it happened. So let's get started. Let's watch it. Remember, before we start, just join our community, aiproduct.engineer. Create an account, it's free. We're learning how to build AI products. We're learning how to monetize them. We're learning how to build AI startups. So you might not want to miss that. And not only that, of course, here on YouTube or wherever it is that you're watching this show, like, comment, subscribe, join us. Remember that the more we are, then the better for everyone, right? So it's a larger community. So let's go and let's get started to listen here the story of Hamza. I'm super excited, I'm super looking forward, and you will too.
So first, Hamza, thank you so much that we can meet today. For those who do not know, so Hamza, he is founder and CTO of ZenML. ZenML, as I understand it, and maybe has changed through time, maybe now it's something different, so you should correct me. It is an open source tool that enables ML engineers to create pipelines, so from a project, such that they can go from a notebook, a POC, something that's easy, into production, straightforward. Okay, so is that like a good summary of ZenML?
I think it's a good summary. I mean, obviously, when we talk about pipelining tools, people sometimes have like connotations of different tools like Airflow or Kubeflow or something. I think what ZenML does different is it focuses on the machine learning patterns that appear when you actually put things into pipelines. So I think firstly, you have to understand, why do you put things into a pipeline? Yes. Actually, you do that if you want to repeatedly do the same process, maybe with a few parameter changes, and you want to track the whole thing.
Yes.
So that's really where our job starts. Although the earlier you do that process, the better, right? I always suggest, like, don't go from chaos to complete harmony. It's always easier if you tidy up things in a while, put things into step functions and stuff. But I think that pattern has been proven to be the way to productionalize machine learning for training and deployment. Because when you get into these patterns, they also intersect with each other. So you end up finding like these data flows, and data is very multidimensional. So it has many different patterns with different pipelines. So it's you want to take care of all of that process. And I think ZenML, more aptly described, is like an MLOps workflow process engine that also tracks all of that metadata and is the source of truth for you. Yeah.
And you have this very long journey software. And I remember you started as pretty much here Mayor, and then at some point it was something completely different. So your journey and how you ended up doing ZenML has been quite a long one, right? I think so since 2017 or something. I've been trying like to be in the space of machine learning, first in something I think more IoT related. That's what the name was Mayor. So and then now it's ZenML. So how did it start?
Well, it started with me meeting my co-founder and we deciding that like machine learning is what we want to do, and we want to apply machine learning in the industry. We wanted to start in Germany because we thought Germany was underdeveloped in that, and I think that's still the case right now.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah, you don't know what you think about that, but in general, we started with applying machine learning for predictive maintenance for trucks and buses. So I remember we used to do so many big pipeline runs for like terabytes of data, trying to find patterns between them. I wish we had the LLMs and stuff back then, or the GenAI stuff, but it was very hard technical challenge, and I was more doing the data science stuff.
Yes.
But very early on, I also, when we started growing, we hired a few people, and I was more on the engineering side, which is, I think, a common pattern to transition into in a small company that wants to productionalize machine learning.
Yes.
So on that, I started picking up patterns and making relationships with people in the tooling space, because I'm a tooling guy. I mean, right now, like chaotic for, if you throw me a tool right now, I'll use it, because I'm a very curious person into how people develop tools and just what are the patterns. Because the way I learn, I don't know about you, Rod, but I basically learned everything about programming through tools. Like I learned programming web applications through Ruby on Rails.
Yeah.
I learned how to do machine learning through Keras
Yes.
and now PyTorch. So it's, for me, that's the window into a process, and I'm very obsessed with the process. So very soon we realized internally that this process was very powerful, because a lot of our clients back then wanted to deploy machine learning on different infrastructure targets, and I always thought that was two different topics. So we ended up abstracting a lot of that stuff away. And then the pandemic happened. I mean, the company was not really a investment backed, like a VC backed company. It was a bootstrap company. And we were on a lot of grants and stuff from the government. So we were doing a lot of research stuff as well. And then at some point, the pandemic happened, all the funds went away, and we were sort of almost bankrupt, and we decided to shut down the company. And then I had no money, and we had to do something. So we decided, we sat down together, did some brainstorming, and we decided to open source some ideas that we had. So we created a new code base that was fresh, winded down the other company and started a new company. And I knew at that point I had enough experience that it had to be open source. And I think that was the thing that changed. So rather than selling a closed source platform sort of solution, which is a hard solution to sell, we went to an open source developer first experience, and that really changed. And this second company has been more successful, I would say. So we have many users using us now. We raised a couple of investment rounds, and we're trying to keep growing.
I'm very curious about that. So if a pandemic happened, and then so the previous effort was not successful, why did you decide to do a second
Company
try? Yes. So maybe like the most intuitive way to say, hey, it didn't work. We spent here years on this, and I have already lived on a limited budget. Also, I have been restricting myself and so on, having rough. So I just get a job and I work at Meta or Google or something. And so why go through the roller coaster once again?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a mixture of like naivete and like privilege. So, I mean, to be honest, when I analyzed that situation, it never really felt like the end to me.
Yes.
It felt like there was a chapter. So I never felt in my heart that, okay, that's it, that was my shot. I felt like I had a lot more to give. And I felt like I couldn't really tap the things in me as an entrepreneur. This sounds a bit cheesy, actually, but like the things in me that I wanted to put out, right? I felt like in the last role, I had to do a lot of systematic thinking, but I couldn't really do the work that I wanted to do, which was really engineering work at scale. And I felt like I had ideas there, and my co-founder felt the same about other things, and we decided to keep going. And to be honest, the money and stuff, like, I know it, I was in a privileged situation because I mean, I took a loan and stuff. Like I just took money out, like not a loan, but some from friends and borrowers. I mean, I did not have enough money to do this.
Yes.
But at the end, I was like, I have my family in Pakistan, and I was like, what's going to happen? I mean, in our culture, we can go back to our parents, no problem. So I was like, okay, whatever. I take a few months to go to my parents, get a job. I mean, I always thought I would get a job somehow.
Yes.
So I never really had that existential dread, which I think is a privilege because I know many people have that. And I also had my visa situation in Germany. I had so many things which technically, if I looked at it, I shouldn't have done it. But I never really had that dread that I think a lot of, and maybe it was because of my situation, I sort of had the confidence that we were onto something and I knew that it would work out and I was willing to give it 6 more months. And I think, to be honest, it was really the last chance. We got no's
Yes.
from everyone. And then we got one yes, and that changed the entire game. But if it was one more no, it would have been over, man.
And do you say, hey, I will put like a deadline and if I don't know, in the first 3 months, I don't see signs that I give up? Or how do you decide to do this second time versus like first one? Did you change something in your
Yeah. I mean, the deadline was the bank account. So we, so we had one employee who he kept on board, but we had to keep paying him. So I was paying him, me and Adam, we were paying him personally with our money.
Yes.
He didn't know that. So we were just putting our personal money to the previous company just to keep him alive.
Yes.
And, but we told him that, okay, we have only a few months left. So after that's over, he had to go. And he's still with us, Barish. So he's great. And if he had left, I think the writing was on the wall. I think I just wasn't admitting it. But if we got like 100 no's from 100 VCs, yeah, I mean, what are you going to do after that? Like,
And how easy it was to raise money. So on one side, I can imagine that this was during the pandemic, so was this time where there was a lot of exuberance, everyone was getting money very easy. But at the same time, open source, some people have positive opinions, other people less so. Then at the same time, you just came from some IO, which kind of worked. So
yes.
how was the reception when you came and say, hey, we're raising around?
So luckily it was different VCs. I mean, we failed. So we failed with Mayot at the end to raise. So we failed to raise first. So a lot of VCs knew us already and they had said no to us before. So that wasn't good. But the VCs that we talked to were a bit different because we were open source. So we ended up exposing ourselves to with the second. That was one of the reasons we had to completely create a new company. Like this all legacy stuff we had to put aside and whatever, right? So the second company was way more focused and it was new, right? Technically. And like, I think people understood there was a clear cut between the two companies. I think it was very difficult for us to raise. I mean, way more difficult than the people around us were raising. Because people around us were raising, as you said, it was the SERP era. Everybody had money. It was like, everybody was giving money to everybody. Money was on the streets. I mean, as is right now with the Gen AI stuff. So you could pitch and get money. Like for us, it was just the fact that we had to talk to the right people who understood that open source is a go-to market. Yes, makes sense. And it's a repeatable manner. And we found luckily Crane and who believed in us, and they the partner there, he saw something and I think he took a bet at us. But it certainly was not easy. So it was one of the hardest raises. Actually, the second raise was the hardest even. But yeah, both our raising stories are very challenging. But I think it also is normal because I've heard from other founders it's the same. So it's like, at the end of the day, getting money from somebody, a big amount is, yeah.
Yes. And so you had like the open source project, and then now you have a cloud solution, and something that I find from the outside, it seems that people are using it. And something that I see with companies that are in the open source space is that they struggle doing this transition in that the open source project is successful, but then how do we make money, who's going to pay, and so on. Then this is a struggle. And then something that I see that sometimes the team has to do, let's say, a completely different product altogether, very, very different. Because the one is open source and popular is not monetizable. Yes. How do you master this, jumping this bridge?
Oh, I haven't mastered I haven't mastered this. I would be lying if I told you I cracked the code. I wish I knew it because I want to keep building open source products.
Yes.
And I think it's a bit sad that it's so difficult. Like but I think the nature of humans is that it's if they see something free, they're very hard to convince them to pay for the same thing.
Yes.
Like parking or something. So it's like the value is sort of anchored. And if you do sales from classical enterprise, it's all about price anchors. And if you anchor to a price, you limit your ceiling. So in this open source case, the price anchor is 0. And it's very hard to get people up from that. So what we're doing, we're still figuring it out, is we are building a product which is a managed version of the framework, open source framework, and we are trying to figure out the features that get people to tip. So there's like we want the open source product to be usable even in a big company without having like problems. So we keep all the interfaces open, but we implement some interfaces only for the cloud solution. Like for example, triggers or integration into certain things, or role-based access control, or some features which visualize some reports.
Yes.
And these things actually are important enough for people to pay if they use it at scale. So our challenge is get the open source product to a certain number of data scientists using it in a company. And once they hit that point, they naturally come to us.
As you're watching this, you might think, you might be considering, hey, I have all these ideas how I could do something with Gen AI, but I do not know how. Or even worse, I might have a prototype. However, how do I monetize it? Or maybe you're in the situation where you say, hey, I feel that Gen AI is the future. I need to be in this AI space. However, I do not know where to start. Well, if that's you, do not fear, do not be worried, because at AI Product Engineer, we have exactly what you need. We're a community of learners, of builders, of makers, of movers, of shakers. We're there to help you become the best possible version of an AI engineer that can be. And not only someone who can create products, who can create new technologies, but also who knows how to monetize it. So if you're considering getting started in the space, or maybe you're a bit ahead, but do not know how to move forward, then join our community, join a product engineer, and let's chat there. See you there.
So for your resources, for the team, in the end, every startup is small. And how do you decide which code goes to the open source, which one goes to the cloud solution, and also how to keep the open source project alive? If it focuses on building an open source solution, then I can imagine that less things are happening on the open source one, and people say, hey, when there's new feature coming and so on.
I think for every feature, it's a discussion. There's no playbook. I think we look at a feature, there's a lot of semantic understanding of the domain. So we know what things are necessary for value, as I said, in the open source product. And we make it depending on the feature. So if somebody comes to me and says, our roadmap is, we want to do a model control plane where you can visualize all your models.
Yes.
Then we have to make a decision, okay, what part of that is going to be open source? And we say, okay, you can visualize the models, you can see them, but maybe the lifecycle management is closed source. And honestly, that's just a gut feeling and just talking to people. And I think we don't have a systematic A/B testing approach, but I heard other founders very successfully doing that they open source some things and they actually went back and closed source them. I think that's something we're now trying, is just putting things out there, seeing what works, and maybe we come up with a feature set that's acceptable to both open source users and cloud users. I don't think this is an exact science, to be honest.
One thing I was thinking of the go-to-market is that how do you find customers with this cloud managed project? Because I can imagine if you go to your open source users,
Right.
they're already using the product, they're getting value, and they have like that is maybe already in production. So the willingness to pay for a cloud solution might not be that high.
Yes.
So where do you go to? Who do you target now that you're building this cloud offering?
I think we have a blended sort of funnel. So we have people who are smaller companies, who are people like myself, like small CTOs of small companies, and they just put in the credit card and do the SaaS, like direct without low touch, like sort of. That's happened to us, which is great. Usually they start with open source and they transition because they don't want to manage it, and our price point is low enough that they can start. But for enterprise, it's more like you have to, I mean, it's a whole workshop you could do about it, right? Like how to sell to enterprise.
Yes.
So I think the willingness to pay for a completely managed solution is definitely no. In ZenML, we have the control plane on our server side and we have the data plane on the customer side. We only see metadata, which is a big win for enterprise. We also have an on-premise solution, which a lot of big enterprises go for then. And the way you navigate is you have to find a champion in the company that believes in the product and knows it adds value. Because ZenML at the end is a play on a process, right? You have to believe in the process that ZenML promotes. If you believe in that process and everybody does that process, it's actually immense value. I've seen people go super faster in production, 300 times the models, like 3 times faster in production. We have really great. I'm very confident that we have a tool that helps and brings a lot of value. And if you can show that, then people are willing to pay for that.
Yes.
But you need to find the person internally who will push that.
Your price one is like $500 per month for the managed solution, right?
It's now even at 99, just very limited, but yeah, it starts even lower. Yeah.
How did you decide on 99? So was it through customer interviews or just trial and error? Or
I'm sorry, I'm not giving you the answers you want. This is all guesses.
that's a video like a start of the song, right? People like I see so many people who say this is like a playbook and so on. And my realization that there is no playbook.
There is no playbook. Yeah. I mean, honestly, you sit down with your founders and you're looking at your faces and you talk to all of your users every day and you get a gut feeling. And this is not science, right? And you don't have time to even worry about that. I mean, okay, maybe I'm not a good business person. Maybe I should be doing A/B testing, and sort of we started at 500. We thought it was too much to start with, so we went to 99. That's how. Honestly, I'm being very honest with you. I think a lot of founders. I don't want to put this veil of myths around it. It's very straightforward and commonsensical. Yeah.
And so 500, they told you, okay, it's too much, and then 99, so it's so
To start with, it's very hard much to the persona, the ICP, the ideal customer profile. We said for the bottoms up, like the Lotus phase was the CTO or a 1 ML engineer who just wants to start.
Yes.
And for them, it's too much. So, right? So for them, they have to start at a lower point. Once they implement it, then we have to charge them on how many models they're using, how many pipelines they're using, how many users are on the platform. Then they're more willing to pay after 2 months, 3 months, 4 months.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's just a little bit like a matrix so pricing where they start 99, but then as they grow, they start paying more for more seats, more models, so on. That's a good idea of how to that model. Yeah, and where do you find these users? So are you like using advertisement? Are you like on communities? So how do they find you?
So we have our open source community is quite big. We have a lot of users. Mostly it comes from there. We also have LinkedIn marketing. So I do a lot of LinkedIn. You might have seen it.
I've seen it. Yes, targeted.
So that's definitely a strategy. And I think that's the only channel we really focus on. And a lot of people come from there. Obviously, we have our blog. We have a content strategy around that.
Yeah.
But it's organic, nothing paid yet.
Curiously, more and more, I've been targeted on Instagram. So for like MLOps tools on so like IT software and so on, where I was thinking, hey, I also decided it's more like a social thing. Instagram. Yes, that was my impression, but now more and more I get this professional targeting. So for this, I would expect to see more like on LinkedIn, for example. So maybe like something, so like to give you the effort and say, we put some budget on Instagram and let's see some new customers come to Instagram.
Yeah. I wonder how that works. Like, do you think for me, it's Twitter, Reddit, and LinkedIn. We're choosing LinkedIn, but we do Reddit and Twitter as well. But you have to focus on what. What do you think is the next? Is it TikTok? Is it Instagram?
Well, I believe, for example, like the topic of like video and so on, I believe a lot on like moving on to something that is more visual. And then that's why I believe, so Instagram, YouTube is working very, very well. So like people don't understand that with YouTube, you get indexed immediately.
Yes.
So you upload a video and then likely you will be like one of the top 3 results within hours.
Yes.
And often the videos tend to be like high quality and so on. And this means that for this very long tail, you can rank very, very easily, very well. And so,
but it's a lot of effort, right? Like, and it gets outdated very quickly.
It depends how you do it. It depends on the format you follow and so on. So I think there will like personal cost to avoid. But I'm a big believer in YouTube. So both on these short formats of the 1-minute shorts, as well as long form content. For example, like B2B is marketing and so on. I think YouTube content. I think also, for example, thinking about this topic of Instagram and TikTok, how I see as a possible format for this advertisement is you do a webinar. So with like a partner or something.
Right.
And then you promote the webinar. So on TikTok, on Instagram saying, on the 30th of March, we'll be having Hamza hosting, CTO from X, we'll be discussing about how they're building a ML production or something. TikTok, Instagram serve as a funnel to sign up in order to have the people behind. So
makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm a big YouTube guy personally.
Yes.
The thing I don't like about about work, I want YouTube to be separate from work. So when I go on YouTube, I mean, that's maybe just me. I just want to watch whatever, Mr. Beast or whatever, yeah, whatever stuff, right? For me, that's a break from work. And when I see, I mean, I also get like MLOps and LLMs and blah, blah. I just skip them. I'm like, okay, I'll think about this when I'm working. I don't. So maybe it's just my persona though. Maybe I'm not the right audience.
But you can also put also the video on now, for example, so Twitter allows you to upload like hours long of video.
Yes.
On LinkedIn, you can upload to 5 minutes videos and so on. So that's what I'm exploring, uploading little videos to Instagram, maybe to Twitter and so. And at least for me, LinkedIn works very well for video. I think that this is something that is possible because also there are not many people doing so video on LinkedIn. So I think it's also this topic of, on one side, not only the platform is growing, where I think Instagram and TikTok are growing very nicely for professional topics, especially TikTok, because now those TikTok users are becoming older and older. So there was a recent study that shows that the so large demographic for TikTok is something like early to mid 30s or so.
Yes.
So it is starting to be like an age group that interest on one side, they're getting to like seniority roles, they're having to have a budget and so on. You can target them. And then it's also the topic of do things where not that many people are, right? So it's not a crowd. And I think like LinkedIn video and so on is still not automated doing this. And there's also the topic of for professional topics and video. A lot of people, they feel maybe not comfortable talking on camera, maybe like recording themselves and so on. So by default, this is a much smaller demographic, much smaller group than those who want to be like Mr. Beast and do like funny videos and so on. That would be like a much larger.
To be honest, I think it's about your ICP, your ideal customer profile, and what you want to target and what your product is. I think you're right that there's a big, I mean, we do have a YouTube channel, we do some stuff. It is successful. I think for us, it just attracts right now the wrong audience. But I think that we might just be doing it wrong. And I'm sure that if you talk to me in 6 to 12 months, we'll have more and more video content and multimodal content, which makes complete sense to me as well. Yeah.
So who should be the right audience? So it should be like the CTO or ML engineer, like a startup. So
I think so for us, if you talk about the cloud product,
yes,
to be honest, it's more the mid-market, slow enterprise, like not big enterprise that takes too long. I mean, we have some enterprise deals that are just going long and long and they never end. But mid-market is very good. Like some company which is AI first or AI somehow is part of the strategy, which I think every company is now. And they're like Series B, Series C, moving fast. Even a bigger enterprise that is moving fast with their department.
yes,
Some leader in there, like a managing technical lead or a CDO, chief data officer, or VP engineering. I think these are the people who ultimately make the decisions. And they're looking at it from a strategic process perspective. And ZenML is a process buy. So you have to believe in the process. And I think that's what we're looking for in terms of this sort of marketer.
yes.
Yeah.
Quite curious is that ZenML started in the area of MLOps, the classical machine learning.
Right.
I will deploy some analytic regression and some regression here and there. Well, now we're in the age of generative AI, LLMs, and so on. And then here is also that people don't necessarily, they train their model from scratch and so on, but rather they download from Hugging Face on this per train. And then, or not even that, they just like query, so OpenAI, GPT, and that's how they build. So how has this impacted so ZenML? So are people now saying, hey, what are the Gen AI functionality, or hey, and maybe like this is already too heavy for me because I'm using so much leader?
What is the difference? What do you think? I don't see a difference.
Well, I see that. So in the classic machine learning pipeline, as we were used to, like for university and in models and so on, is of I collect the data, I need to clean it, I need to see that it works well. Maybe like I do some experiments, small ones and so on. Then I will try with multiple models. For example, I need to have some anomaly detection for like fraud scoring or something.
Right.
So then I will be testing some models. So here some trees, here some illustration and so on.
Right.
So I'll benchmark it and so on. Then in the end, I come up with this pipeline and I need to bring like the pipeline. So it's like you say like A, B, C, D, E, F steps that I need to do in PowerShell. And now with, so the code generative AI is that, so I say, hey, I need a so LLM or my customer care or something. Maybe we'll pack it in some RAG application or so. And then I just go to a Hugging Face. I will download, yes, there are multiple models, but I will say people, the sort of like default to, let's say, 3-5 models. So like the Llama family, the Mr. family, and so on. So it will be like the what I will choose. And then after that, test it. Also because this is so stochastic and it's hard test, it will be more like qualitative. So where maybe you put some inters to try some queries, you get like a good feeling, and then you deploy, right? So I feel it's maybe like much shorter like the process. Also, there is not really like a process. It's more like, so here, try and error, fiddling around and so on.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I agree because look, I think it seems like that to us right now because most of the LLM stuff that's happening right now is experimentation and it's not real production. For me, I think most of the people I'm talking to are doing, I mean, okay, don't get me wrong, there is production rags are happening and people are productionizing retrieval use cases, which I think makes sense, but they could have done that before as well, right? Like in classical machine learning. It's just, I think the real the process is the same if you fine tune, right, or train the model, and that has happened now once in OpenAI. They're doing all that still, right? So it's a bit back of the line. You're consuming the results. I think you're very right in saying the one thing that I see is systemically different is probably the evaluation bit. That is very different because in classical deep learning, usually the target is clear, the loss function is clear. And here the loss function is not clear and the benchmark's not clear. And it's very hard to actually put it in production to go through the red teaming and all that to figure out that whether the model is hallucinating or not and doing the right truth. And that's why RAG grounds it and makes it a bit more reliable. However, if you really look at it from a bird's eye view, it's the same, right? You load the data, you load a model, you met the tokens, you train it, you fine tune it, you deploy it, consume it. Yeah, maybe in a RAG way, maybe in a non-RAG way.
Even this topic of like fine-tuning and so on, I'm not sure how frequently it's happening, because I even see that in the large organizations, so it's like these enterprise organizations, where they're even going just directly to like OpenAI, posting it on Azure, and then just using GPT-4 and so on, and that's pretty much it. So it's, then I wonder here, in this world where people are consuming primarily OpenAI models,
Right.
how does ZenML help? Where does it come in? What do you see here, ZenML?
It's a very good. I've been thinking about this a lot. For first, so for me, I think I'd be very interested. Everybody has a different opinion on this. I'm not sure what my opinion is, but I did a poll recently, right, to ask this question. Like I asked my network, which is full of ML practitioners, right, from really cool companies as well. How many people are doing RAG? How many people are doing, fine tuning only? And how many people are fine tuning the models and doing RAG? And I thought, to be honest with you, that the poll would be 80% RAG because that's all I've heard really. When I talk to practitioners, that's all I've heard. But if you look at the poll results, it's actually only 55% RAG. There's a very small percentage that are only fine tuning, like 10% maybe. And then 30% or so are doing both, and the rest are not using LLMs, right? So that was me very interesting that how many people are actually thinking about fine tuning these models.
Yes.
And I think the answer will be there will be some set of companies that will just do what you said. OpenAI, whatever, or maybe Claude 3 came out, so maybe something like Anthropic or whatever. So some other company, maybe there will be even some adapters between the things that arbitrage the tokens, and I think that will exist. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. Maybe there's a big economy there. I'm not sure how big it is. Probably it's huge. But I don't think that we can say so easily that people will not actually fine tune these models for more specialized tasks. I mean, we have seen there are people out there like the LoRa land, maybe you heard about that.
Yes.
Which was they showed how you can train smaller models using Mistral or even smaller other models that really specialize. And I think the advantage, the economic drivers of that is it's way cheaper, it's way better,
Yes.
it's faster, it's easier to host. You host your own data, you don't get it out. Even if it's hosted on Azure, at the end, OpenAI has that data, right? So I'm sure there will be some set of companies that will want to own the whole stack, and there will be some set of companies that will use OpenAI. So I think the answer will be it will be both. The question is, where does NML play a big role? I think obviously more in the latter, where you are taking control of the models, because I think the need for classical things that ZenML solves is less so. I mean, we add less value in RAG. You could do an indexing and data preparation step with ZenML and do the RAG application on the LangChain or something. But to be honest, I've seen people do that, but I'm often asking them, like, do you really need ZenML for this? I mean, I'm not sure whether it's worth it to do it.
Yes.
Maybe we end up adding some features that help in that process. Maybe then it adds more value. But if I'm being honest, I see a lot more value when people actually train the models because then you need a repeatable process and you got to check out these models, you got to test them and you got to scale them. So,
Yes.
yeah.
So what I think for ZenML is that both in both case of RAG and as well as in fine tuning is that in these two ways of doing things, there are no established frameworks. There's no like the Ruby on Rails that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So here's the opportunity to bring rules, to bring so patterns, best practices, and why also you were mentioning Predibase with Noraland.
Yeah.
I would say that they are not representative of the market because Predibase is a top company with top people. Like the founders, everyone who's there is really like super qualified. And the majority of the companies doing generative AI, most of the time they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So tell them, hey, now, so fine tune your models. I struggle to see how they will be able to master that because I see that fine tuning, and this is like a big opportunity for ZenML.
Yeah.
It's key, as I see, like almost like alchemy. So where you find some GitHub, so notebooks, and you find like some notes, some readers here and there, and software and some tips on how to initialize, so here like the GPUs and so on. You need to be like really deep in the weeds, like a lot of understanding. So if somehow ZenML can like gather these sources and then systematize it and so on, and then offer like an easy path, like almost like plug and play on how to do fine tuning. Or I think that's like coming like something there. And also like the other thing that I see is, that people ask me a lot is one, the hardware that people require to do fine tuning. Like even this, so like which type of GPU card do I need? Do I need like an A10? Do I need something different and so on? So here also maybe like have some defaults in the framework of like maybe based on like type of data we model, maybe like some sort of even hardcore rules. Is these characteristics then default to this model and so on? Something like that. That's right. Another topic is like cost. A lot of people tell me fine tuning sounds interesting, but it's so maybe like too expensive, maybe can afford so. So maybe here's something like ZenML can have some calculator or somewhere to tell, okay, you based on this data you have, this is approximately how much it will cost you to do the fine tuning. And then oh, it's not like millions, but it's maybe like, I don't know, 5,000. I can afford 5,000.
Yeah. All of these things you just said are so spot on. It feels like you've been in all of our internal meetings. Yeah, no, it was amazing. I think all of what you said, we're working on it. And that ZenML has a key role to play in these things. And I'm very looking forward to trying to show people. I mean, I fine-tune it myself. Like I've gone through this process. I know it's painful.
Yes.
And I'm very looking forward to giving people an easy entry into that. So not like just one, you have really great tools like LitGPT and Axolotl, but they're one time. They're not process. For me, it's about the process. When I talk to ZenML users, what they love about ZenML is, oh, I have a guide where it's not just the actual tool, it's the system, as you said. And I'm very looking forward to, first of all, discover it myself, what the system is for LLMs and Gen AI generally, and then also educating people. I mean, this is one thing I love is educating. Once I learn it myself. But I think I've done the last 6 months research now. I've worked on LLMs and I've understood what's happening. I also see that it's getting cheaper and cheaper, like the trajectory. Like today in the morning, I read a paper about LoRa Plus, which is like 3 times cheaper than normal LoRa. It was crazy and better. Then there was this 1-bit quantization, 1.57-bit quantization paper from Microsoft that maybe NVIDIA GPU doesn't even support that. Maybe there's a new chip company that will do it. So honestly, I don't see a world where these things, the only driver is just they're going to get cheaper. Like they're going to get cheaper and faster. So why wouldn't you fine tune eventually if you talk about the long term? And yes, you're right. There's a big opportunity to first show people how do you do it currently, and then to be in a good position to capitalize on, I think, going to be amazing innovations in the next 2 years in the hardware chip space. Probably the next unicorns are going to be founded, or maybe are already founded around that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I keep asking you questions, Hamza, and then you say that.
No, you gave me a lot of insight into when you talked about where you see the ZenML role in it. Can you tell me maybe generally what I'm interested in is when you talk to practitioners about productionalizing LLMs, what are the top challenges that they face? Why isn't, yeah, why Why do they find it difficult? Or is it not difficult? Is it easy?
No, I would say that so similar to this idea of when ZenML started at going from prototype to production and people having a notebook or they're trying to bring it's a very similar situation. Not in terms of like the code itself, but more in the idea of you can get some proof of concept, you can some demo and so on, it sort of like works. But then having this to the next level, for example, like an example of I want to have some sort of like chat assistant for my customer support service, and then I learn now. Yes, exactly. And then I do it for like 5 agents, and then how do I go from 5 to like 700 agents? This is a very big bridge to gap. It's all like that they need to close. This one thing.
Also, is that sorry to interrupt? Is that because of the scale of the infrastructure? Is that because of the data silos that they have, or is that because of the evaluation and the hallucinations? What is the challenges?
It's a mix. One is the topic of like cost. Many people are surprised on how this scales, especially if you go to like a cloud source and
Very badly.
yes, but also they say, wow, like it's expensive and so on, and then so they are shocked of that. So I do think that this topic of like cost control and how much I expect to pay is something that people are not used to. I'm not informed, and I don't think there's like a good way at the moment to like estimate, oh, based on file one, this is how much I will be paying.
Yeah.
Is one thing. The other topic is also that these sort of like software engineering best practices that we know from like database and so on, they are not yet fully trickled down to like LLM. So for example, realizing, hey, in the end, I don't have like a million different unique queries, but maybe like have like a top 10. So maybe we should be caching and so on. And then maybe it should be like some pre-filter where in the beginning, when I put a query, maybe can go first to some just regular search, so like some Elastic or something, and then get the answer from there. And then if not, then go to the some LLM or so. So these type of like systems that enable me to have more robust solutions. So for example, the topic of the outage, what happens if the API from OpenAI or so isn't available or is like slow and so on.
Yeah.
So all these things are pretty much, let's say, that people are still just querying directly with a very thin layer. And that's pretty much like the application.
Yeah.
And this is like this one topic. There are topics I would say like all these prompt injection, jailbreaking and so on.
Yes.
So where people keep thinking on the interface as it will be just some ChatGPT style of chat, and that's it. And I feel that people need to think more on one side, how can I constrain the inputs such that there is no possibility for like tampering it.
Yeah.
And also to think just about the usability. So for most cases, you don't need a chat. You can have something more constrained.
Yeah.
And this way you can, on one side, give people more flexibility, because for most people, chat interfaces are daunting.
Yeah.
They don't know what to type, and as a result, it might be like a barrier. So I think this topic of like cost is the topic of how to do it more engineering robust, and then it's topic of thinking just usability, so how it can work best into production. So
yeah, this is exactly what I've seen. Same. Like, and also just guardrailing. Like guardrails, as you said, security is a big problem. The bot saying different things that you're not meant it to say. We saw the Gemini launch. Everybody saw how that can go wrong even at a scale of Google, right?
yes.
I think it's not easy to really productionize the application there.
You might be one of the pretty much 80+% of our viewers who are not subscribers. You won't believe that, right? Quite some people watch our videos, but they are not following us. And that's shocking. And should be, because if you're not subscribed, if you're not part of our community, you're missing so much. You're basically missing updates, anything that we might share, any new episodes, and you're just left behind in all this GenAI space. And not only that, but of course, the more we are, then we can bring over more interesting guests for you, we can create more content for you, and we can double down the efforts to give you the best possible educational content on GenAI on the internet. So it doesn't really cost you anything. It's just hitting that subscribe button, hitting that little red button there, and being part of the community. Follow us wherever it is that you're watching this, YouTube, X, Threads, Instagram, doesn't matter. Just follow us, like, comment, subscribe, and let's continue watching our conversation with Hamza. It's so fascinating.
One opportunity that I see for like frameworks are pretty much anyone who's building a space is on offering JavaScript libraries, SDKs, and so on. Because one different thing I see compared to like the machine learning wave and so on is that machine learning wasn't allowed like a back office, back process situation. It was happening at midnight in batches.
Yeah.
Like I transfer my data, it happens overnight, and then there's a somewhere in the database or something.
Right.
And now this is front-end center in the products directly. This means that front-end developers, web developers, and so on, they are working directly with these products. And in Python, there are a million things. Well, in JavaScript, there is very, very little. So I think also like thinking about strategy for ZenML and so on, and thinking about targeting CTOs. Well, I actually could be thinking, hey, there is like 40% more JavaScript people than Python people.
Yes.
And like the whole web runs on JavaScript.
Yeah.
So why not try to have some sort of like tools or like a wrapper or an SDK in JavaScript that people can use ZenML, even though they might be a JavaScript person.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. I've dabbled with this idea. We're so Python heavy that it seems daunting, but I think it's you make a very valid point. I mean, it's the first pattern that I noticed when OpenAI released like GPT 3.5 was just the JavaScript. How many software developers who were just web developers went into AI immediately, and it became sort of an AI engineering for JavaScript world.
Yes.
And I think that trend will continue. So very, very interesting to see. And it's a very good idea. I'll think about it.
And as I said, for anyone who's starting the field,
Yeah.
so when you meet like students, early career and so on, what do you tell them to do?
Oh God, it. You know, I don't want to give advice. I'm very bad at it, and I think people don't follow. I mean, I've made myself good decisions. I think not following advice as well because it's so contextual. And I think that if somebody comes to me, I'll ask them, okay, what is your goals? Ask them a few questions. They'll probably already know the answer. so I just try to get that answer out of them. So it's individual.
Should people still learn how to code?
Yes.
Okay, they should learn how to.
I think people, even more so today than ever before, people should learn how to code.
What do you think about Mojo, Rust, all the other players that are like competing against Python?
I welcome them. I mean, I really want to do ZenML in Rust soon. I think Rust is great.
Yeah.
Have you seen what the rough guys are doing in the like rough and now with UV?
No.
Did you follow UV?
No. So
This is absolutely insane. So there's I feel so stupid. The name slips me, but there's a team of developers who built rough, and it will come to me in a second. The people they're like just a few developers. They're Rust developers, and they're rebuilding the entire dev tooling Python landscape with Rust. So rough is doing everything now: linting, formatting, even dark lint, which used to be like doc strings, and they're doing it at insane speeds. And now they're doing it better than MyPy and all these established tools that were purely Python and had C bindings maybe. And that's insane. And now they recently released UV, which is a pip competitor. So you can install packages, and it's a package resolver. It does dependency resolution, as far as I can see, better than pip. It installs it 1,000 times faster, like it uses smart caching and everything. At ZenML, we're doing massive testing where we install basically all the libraries. We integrate to all the libraries. And our testing suite used to take hours. Now we cut it down to like 10 minutes because of UV. So I just looking at this Rust results, Rust is primary driver for that. I just feel like it's so insane the amount of performance gains we can get. So yeah, I'm very excited. I'm not sure about Mojo. I haven't used that yet.
So maybe 2025. So ZenML is in Rust.
I'm not sure. Yeah, 2025. Yes, that's a good timeline.
Okay. So before we finish, Hamza, anything else that I missed mentioned that you would like to share? Any announcement? Anything? Any shout out? Anything?
Well, I think it's not really an announcement, but it's more a plug for ZenML and ZenML Cloud. So we do have a free trial of ZenML Cloud. If you go to zenml.io/cloud, you'll see what you get. You get a managed ZenML server, and you can go to the docs and do the starter and production guide, which I authored as well, which I think is a very good entry into MLOps generally. And now we're going to have an LLM ops guide soon, which is what I'm working on, talking to you about these subjects, which is also going to then touch on the topics of how to productionalize Gen AI models and LLMs specifically. If you're interested in those topics, just go to our docs, try our quick start, and let us know on our Slack whether we did a good job.
It's ZenML.io, right? Like the
Yeah, ZenML.io.
Well, thank you so much, Hamza, for being here today at the discussion.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for this spontaneous interview in a random coffee shop in Soho.
Well, that was it. This was our chat with Hamza. when he was here in London visiting. And really, when I reflect about that, and something that is a common thread in our program, in our show, is how really we might not know what might work at the beginning, right? We might start doing a product, we might start very convinced that something might work, and turns out to be very different. However, we remain flexible, we remain adaptable, and then somehow we have this serendipity moment, we have this, maybe we're crossing the chasm, so to say. And that's exactly what happened with ZenML. That's exactly this story with Hamza, how he first started doing something and then he realized this is not going anywhere, and then pretty much just hitting rock bottom, but starting from start. And not only that, but remain flexible, always testing new things, and also thinking about open standards, thinking about community, thinking about open source. In our show, we always believe that open source will always win. This is really something that has always resonated with me and with everyone in the community, that open approaches, open standards have always the upper hand. And that's exactly what ZenML is about. It's fascinating how they've been moving from an MLOps tool towards more Gen AI, and now pretty much I'd say like a platform for teams who are building infrastructure for AI. I also like how Hamza tests the different type of like pricing, different type of growth strategies, and just how they remain nimble. Because remember, in this era of AI, where everything is automated, we're always threatened by being replaced by ChatGPT in some form or the other. Being very flexible, being very adaptable is really the key for success and just the survive. Right? So this is it for today. And if you liked it, just leave your comments. We can ask Hamza if you have any question for him. Also, given that this was recorded some time ago, let me know, should we have a follow-up with him? Should we inquire what is it that they're up to? What has happened in the last months? Well, if that's the case, if that makes you curious, then just leave a message there, right? And other than that, remember, like, subscribe, and just join our community, AI Product Engineer, because we're the community building the products of the future and where we learn by shipping. So let's start doing some shipping. Until next time.
Do you like should we ask whether, because it feels if it this we're recording anyway, sorry. No, no, no. We didn't want to be rude. I don't want to.
No, I think you're up here because I'm covering you, so it's fine.
Yeah, we're gonna edit you out if this it says. Yeah.